Hey, just letting you guys know, the next few videos are all sponsored by Star Trek Fleet Command. If you want to play a really neat MMO style, RTS style game on mobile or on PC, please consider clicking the link that is in the description below or in the pinned comment. We also happen to have an alliance. We are on server 79 and we're all building our bases in the Patton System. So if you want to actually be around us, we are all building around here as we speak and playing a little bit on stream as well, helping building each other's resources up. So please consider hitting the link in the description, and thank you very much. All right, let's talk about something. We have I've not talked about Samantha Lux on stream before, on video either. I just don't really have much of a reason to, but there was a tweet that they brought out that brought a ton of controversy their way. And I do want to talk about that because there's a lot of issues with it that I just want to pop out. Before we get into that, though, let's go ahead and do the fan art section real quick. From Call Me Queer, Mini Slime Suris, the strawberry is mainly for size reference. Aw. Imagine having this little slime Suris in your pocket. It's just there. It's just there, like a strawberry. The next one we have here is from Cold Loyalty. Here is an Owosurus Fortnite skin, Vaporeon onesie style, of course. Oh my god. And the next one we have is a update on the piece from Juni Hatsune. Finished. This time I decided to go with a soft airbrush look. What do y'all think? I think it looks fucking fantastic, personally. As always, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. And again, every single one of you who drop fan art in there, thank you so much. It makes my day, and it is incredibly appreciated. But now, we probably need to go ahead and talk about this tweet here. So, Samantha Lux tweets, "This might be controversial, but all trans women should carry guns." Now, I'm going to go ahead and say that with a caveat, I actually agree with this tweet. The caveat is, I think that all trans women, all minority groups in general, should carry with themselves self-defense of some kind. If you are very suicidal, probably not the greatest to carry a gun, but certainly bring with you something that you can use to protect yourself, because especially here in the US, it's just not safe. There's plenty of states you can still use the trans panic defense as a way to get a lighter sentence when literally killing somebody for being trans, for surprising you as trans. This tweet, while it shouldn't have been more than just a bunch of people going, I mean, yeah, like with a caveat. I mean, hell, even Kanye popped in. I agree with the sentiment and assumed you take this into account, but while I'm very pro-gun ownership, not everybody's responsible enough to own one or carry, and that's an important decision contextual to each person. Though people should carry non-lethals like pepper spray, stun guns, etc. Yeah, I agree. Again, you should carry self-defense. I think that it's only responsible to carry self-defense on you in some way, shape, or form. You never know what's going to happen. And if you use statistics to say, well, it's very unlikely something will happen to you, yeah, cool. I'm sure those statistics will be very, very good comfort if something does happen and you're suddenly, faced with that reality. No. It's like Rowan says it's sad that it's just a fact of the matter that trans folks are under constant mortal threat. Yeah, like it's not constant, but it is more likely. Now, some of the responses to this tweet, I have some huge issues with. Seems like a great way to increase that 40% figure. Now, hold on. The 40% figure they're talking about, I would imagine, is about the trans suicide rate, the rate at which people tend to, aliven. Yes, a gun can increase the likelihood that will happen, but no. When the argument is you want to have a weapon for self-defense to prolong your life, it does not logically follow, yes, this will increase the suicides. No, that's not how that freaking works. There are some more reasonable takes where people point out things like, hey, with the enormous caveat of if mental health allows. Jade here says, why? Why should trans women carry guns? Well, I can... Reasons why you should. This is significantly better than it used to be. To view legislation related to LGBTQ panic defense legislation, click on the location on the map. To view federal legislation, click on the Capitol building. Red states are states where legislation has been passed, and teal states are where legislation has been introduced. Legislation has been introduced in Florida and Texas, but it hasn't done much more than that. No legislation for the trans panic defense. In Senate committee, the state of Florida introduced a bill to prohibit the use of the gay and trans panic defense. So all these gray states right here, one of them being my lovely state of Georgia, all of these gray states are states where currently, and all the blue states too, they're states where currently you can use the gay or trans panic defense in a court to lower the amount of time that you are punished if you happen to, kill a trans person. Also, we have a new officer joining on Star Trek Fleet Command. Neato. But yeah, no, the vast majority of the United States are literally, statistically, less safe for trans people as a matter of point. That's why. Let's talk about guns. Let's talk about what it means to have gun ownership in the United States. While, yes, we can have the lovely, lovely defense of nobody should ever use a gun. And I agree. Nobody should ever use a gun. But we live in a world where people have guns. We live in a world where the police are heavily armed. We live in a world where the military is heavily armed. We live in a world where people who want to break laws have guns. Hell, I live in a world right now where coyotes encroach on my property. It is only smart to have weaponry of some kind, up to and including gun. Literally, the property next to me has had their freaking goats. Has had, when one of their goats died and they buried them inside the fence, the coyotes got across the fence and yanked the goat corpse out of the ground and pulled it out. Yeah, no, there are places where owning a gun, to argue that you shouldn't have one is literally just a position of privilege. I'm glad you're privileged not to live in the countryside, or I'm glad you're privileged enough not to live in an area where it might not be safe for trans people to exist normally. Yeah. Now, let's talk about a couple other things here. Let's talk about the things that guns do. So you can use guns for sportsmanship. You can also use them for self-defense. In a post-gun world, gun ownership should be something that is handled responsibly. I am pro-gun ownership for a variety of reasons, one of which being I don't want the state having a monopoly on violence. Yes, individual citizens shouldn't have to carry guns, but the reality is individual citizens do carry guns. Now, I understand there are statistics, like if you happen to have a gun, you are more likely to assume other people have a gun, and because of that, you are also more likely to engage in violence with other people, and that's not good. It also increases the likelihood of suicides. But here's the thing. When you use these kinds of defenses, when somebody is saying, in a minority group, not me personally, but Samantha Lux here, when you say to a person who is saying, I would like adequate self-defense for me and people like me, and I think it should be a prerogative to carry adequate self-defense for me and people like me, and your argument is, but this statistic, my response to you is going to be, wow, so you just made the 99% of people own a fridge argument. How many of you seen this one? Where somebody will point out that fast food should be available on something like EBT because not everybody has access to adequate food storage. And even when they do, it's not necessarily a perfect scenario. Or they just don't have the time, and somebody points out, well, they can just put it in the fridge. And then they hit you with that lovely little post, 99.6% of people own a fridge. Cool. That's cold comfort for somebody who's not in that situation. I just don't care. I feel like the person, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like in a situation where you are in that minority percentage, you literally, the last thing on your mind will be, wow, it's very unlikely that this would have happened. Huh, I must be very unlucky. That is a shame. No, that fucking statistic is going to be the last thing on your mind. Survival will be the first thing on your mind. In the case of the fridge, it will be trying to find adequate food storage for non-dries. In the case of the gun, it's probably going to be, you know, adequate ways to defend yourself if you happen to be in the position where it has to happen. No, not everybody ends up dealing with a home invasion. No, not everybody ends up dealing with a rape. No, not everybody ends up dealing with a particular kind of assault or mugging where it would be more beneficial for them to have a weapon. But if you happen to find yourself in that situation, you would be very happy to have one. Now, again, it should be noted, no, you should not do this if you happen to have a proclivity for suicidality. That would be one of my biggest lines. Do not, like, a point of responsible gun ownership is understanding if you are not in a position to responsibly own a gun. If you can responsibly own a gun, then I don't think there is, I believe there is at the very least a net neutral in owning one. Personally. Cold comfort when talking about fridges. I didn't mean for that to be a joke, but yeah, here we are. For anybody that's fighting this particular take, I want to also point out that in certain protests, let's say BLM protests, if citizens came armed with guns, in many cases, it ended up being that the police were less likely to escalate to violence because it was more likely that the citizenry had the ability to retaliate. Now, I know that this doesn't necessarily mean every situation will always be like this, but I also want to point out that the Stonewall riots were a thing that in fact happened. And we especially with a lot of states introducing legislation to try to get rid of the trans panic defense, there obviously are areas where protests may end up happening again. Probably a good idea for people to make sure that they are prepared just in case. Don't go with the knowledge that, oh my God, you're going to use a weapon, but certainly make sure that you are able to defend yourself. It's just a smart thing to do. Also, we have another officer that's joined. Woo! There are some other takes on here that I do find useful and or interesting. People who risk being attacked for existing should arm themselves. Shouldn't be a hot take. I agree. Next. This person goes, I do not think all trans women should have guns. Some of you bitches are very dumb. Wow. Look at that take. That is certainly a take that I just can't bring myself to give a shit about. Then we have progressive misogyny, because guns plus significant mental health issues always ends well, which is an argument to say that all trans people have significant mental health issues, which is not the case. Suffering from gender dysphoria is a mental health issue, but not all trans people happen to suffer from gender dysphoria. And if you are a variant of post-op trans, you may be trans who once suffered from dysphoria and do not currently suffer from it. This shouldn't be controversial. Carry a gun. Protect yourself from being hate crimed. Yes. Just, yes. How? So, but there were some people who were posting out the statistics and going like, well, you're statistically more likely to harm yourself with a gun. You are statistically more likely to hurt others. You are statistically more likely to this, that, and the other thing. Again, this is the fucking fridge argument. If somebody is in a position where they might possibly be hate crimed, which again, there are legal defenses for people where trans people are concerned still in the United States, as demonstrated earlier in the fucking video, I don't think that it is an irresponsible take to say, hey, maybe these people should be able to defend themselves. And If your argument is going to be, then carry a taser, I have some statistics to throw at you. Look at the likelihood of police tasers failing in their particular jobs. This happens in a variety of cases. Now, I want you to then downgrade the taser to a civilian-grade taser that does not fire at somebody who's far away, but requires somebody to be in close proximity to you. Now, if your argument is going to be carry a knife, I agree. Knives are useful tools. But if you have the option to carry something that can literally stop somebody from killing you without any type of finesse of any kind, then yeah, I would just say take the thing that is guaranteed to save your life. If it is a toss-up between you and somebody assaulting you, your life is important. You should probably protect it. Now, if you're living in an area where nobody legally can have guns, then it is less likely that your assailant has a gun, isn't it? That is not the case in the United States. There seems to be this weird idea, and I see it a lot with a lot of people who are on the left, and it's this idea that we already live in a kind of perfect society. What I mean by that is they'll make arguments against guns and stuff like that, and I'll agree with the sentiments behind the arguments 110%. But then the question has to be asked, okay, that is all true, but we already live in a world with guns. Not just a world, but a country where people celebrate and collect them. So what do you do in that world, in that reality? Do you just take the good old ethical stance and not carry a gun on yourself? No, that just feels equally dumb. If the argument's going to be, well, don't pay into the market that benefits, people having guns, then cool. Well, you live in the United States. You could probably just get a gun from a friend who already fucking did it. They've probably collected like 10. Seriously. At the end of the day, if a minority group is saying, I would like access to adequate self-defense, and I think other people in my minority group should have access to adequate self-defense because of the rate at which we are hate crimed, that should not be a controversial take. Nothing about that should be controversial. And yet, it's a thing. Remember, one of the main things the Black Panthers did to protect their own when the police were assaulting at a much higher rate than they did now was observing while armed any arrest of a person of color. And it worked. Please, remember, there are harsh realities that people face right now, and saying that statistically blah, 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 blah from a position of privilege helps fucking nobody in a situation like this. Sometimes, though, you get dumb shits like this, saying this person wants the statistic to reach 100%. There are plenty of trans people who are armed all the time and do not contribute to that statistic. But that's about all I've got there. I'm sure I'm going to lose some subscribers for this. I'm sure I'm going to lose some subscribers for from people who are very, very anti-gun. And I understand. In a perfect world, I would also be wholly anti-gun. But we don't live in a perfect world. Especially where I am. I already live in an area where guns are everywhere. There is not a house on the block that does not have a rifle, a pistol, and a shotgun on hand. Insofar as you can even define a block where I live. Anyways, that's my take on this. Just absolute horsecocky. If you guys enjoyed this or any other stuff that I do, please consider hitting like, subscribe, and all of that fun stuff. But past that, I do have to say thank you for watching. If you want to support my content and what I do, please consider going to my Patreon and, well, you know what to do. As always, everybody, insert end of video tagline here.